It's 3:17 a.m. in Brussels. The lights inside NATO headquarters are still on. Phones are ringing. Screens glow blue in dark rooms, and then one by one secure channels go silent. No announcement, no press conference, no emergency summit. Just a message, short, final. The North Atlantic Treaty is no longer in force. By sunrise, the most powerful military alliance in human history no longer exists. This is not a story about explosions on day one. It's a story about something far more dangerous. A vacuum. Tonight we ask a question that has haunted strategists for decades. What if NATO collapsed overnight? To understand the shockwave, we need to understand what just disappeared. NATO is not a country. It has no army of its own, no president, no capital. And yet for more than 70 years it has shaped the entire global order. Formed in 1949, NATO was built on a single sentence. Article 5. An attack on one is an attack on all. That promise stopped wars before they started. It kept borders frozen. It made enemies hesitate. And overnight that promise is gone. In this scenario, the collapse is total. No gradual withdrawal. No partial breakdown. One moment collective defense exists. The next it doesn't. So what changes first? Not tanks, not missiles. Trust. Within hours, European capitals wake up to a new reality. Every nation is alone. Germany, Poland, the Baltic states, each with its own military, each with its own fears, and no binding guarantee that anyone will come if the worst happens. Emergency meetings begin immediately. But these are not alliance meetings. They are contingency meetings. Who can we rely on now? Who will defend whom? And at what cost? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. For decades, NATO allowed many countries to underinvest in defense. Why spend more when the alliance had your back? Now that shield is gone. The first major shift happens in Eastern Europe. Countries closest to Russia feel it instantly. Not because Russia has moved, but because it doesn't have to. Deterrence is psychological, and NATO's collapse shatters it. Military planners in Moscow don't see opportunity yet. They see uncertainty, and uncertainty is destabilizing. At the same time, financial markets react. Defense stocks surge. Energy prices spike. Insurance costs rise for shipping lanes near contested borders. Because NATO wasn't just a military alliance. It was a signal to markets that certain wars would never happen. Now that assumption is broken. Within days, governments face impossible decisions. Do we rearm? Do we seek new alliances? Do we build our own nuclear deterrent? And this is where history echoes loudly. After World War II, Europe was exhausted. NATO emerged to prevent a return to rival blocs and arms races. Before NATO alliances were fragile, secretive, and often contradictory. They pulled nations into wars they didn't intend to fight. The collapse of NATO doesn't return us to peace. It returns us to that older, more dangerous system. Bilateral deals, temporary coalitions, mutual suspicion. Now let's look at the main element of change, the loss of collective defense. Without NATO, military power becomes fragmented. Instead of one integrated command structure, there are dozens, different doctrines, different standards, different red lines. Joint exercises stop. Shared intelligence dries up. Interoperability, the ability to fight together, erodes fast. This isn't just inefficiency, it's vulnerability. Because modern warfare is fast. Cyber attacks don't wait for treaties. Missiles don't pause for diplomacy. And the absence of NATO means every nation must now calculate threats alone. Some will overreact, some will hesitate. Both are dangerous. Now consider nuclear weapons. NATO is one of the reasons nuclear proliferation slowed in Europe. The U.S. nuclear umbrella reassured allies they didn't need their own bombs. Without that umbrella, the question returns. If no one guarantees our survival, should we guarantee it ourselves? This isn't speculation, it's logic. Within months, debates erupt in countries that once rejected nuclear weapons entirely. Not because they want war, but because they fear it. And fear changes policy. Next, look beyond Europe. NATO's collapse doesn't stay regional. In the Indo-Pacific, allies watch closely. If the most successful military alliance in history can vanish overnight, what do security guarantees really mean? Adversaries take notes, not because they plan immediate invasions, but because the rules just changed. Deterrence depends on credibility. Credibility depends on consistency. NATO's disappearance sends a signal that long-term commitments are fragile. Now let's walk through the cause and effect sequence. Day 1 confusion and emergency diplomacy. Week 1 markets adjust. Militaries raise readiness levels. Month 1 defense budgets skyrocket. By month 3 new alliances begin to form. Not broad inclusive ones, but narrow interest-based blocks. Northern Europe clusters together. Eastern Europe seeks bilateral guarantees. Southern Europe focuses on maritime security. But none of these replicate NATO's scale. There is no single command, no unified strategy, no automatic response. By year 1, arms races accelerate. Countries don't trust intentions anymore. They prepare for worst-case scenarios. Military drills become larger and closer to borders. Incidents increase. A jet flies too close. A drone crosses the wrong line. A cyber attack gets misattributed. And without NATO's crisis management mechanisms, escalation becomes more likely, not inevitable, but easier. Now compare this to the real world. Today, NATO prevents war not by fighting, but by making war irrational. Its presence raises the cost of aggression so high that most conflicts never begin. When NATO expanded after the Cold War, it wasn't just about territory. It was about locking in predictability. Critics argue NATO provokes tension. Supporters argue it prevents catastrophe. But in this scenario, the debate is over, because NATO is gone, and what replaces it is not peace but competition. History tells us what happens next. The late 19th and early 20th centuries were filled with alliances that shifted constantly. Each crisis forced nations to choose sides quickly. Misjudgments piled up. World War I didn't start because leaders wanted global war. It started because alliance systems failed under pressure. NATO was designed specifically to avoid that. Its collapse reopens that chapter. Now step back. What does this mean for ordinary people? Higher defense spending means less money elsewhere. Social programs shrink. Taxes rise. Energy costs remain unstable. Travel becomes riskier. Trade routes feel less secure. Insurance premiums go up. This is how geopolitics enters daily life. Not through headlines, but through prices, jobs, uncertainty. And yet this is not a guaranteed apocalypse. Human systems adapt. New institutions could emerge. Confidence-building measures could replace old structures. Diplomacy could evolve. But adaptation takes time, and the period between collapse and stability is the most dangerous, because power vacuums don't stay empty. They invite tests, small ones at first, then larger ones. So the real danger of NATO collapsing overnight is not a single invasion. It's 1,000 calculations made under pressure without a safety net. It's miscommunication, miscalculation, momentum. In the end, NATO's greatest strength was not its weapons. It was predictability, knowing who would respond, how and why. Remove that and the world becomes louder, faster, and less forgiving. So here's the question that lingers after the lights go out in Brussels. If the alliances that shape the modern world can vanish overnight, what new structures would rise in their place? And would they make us safer? Or simply remind us why NATO existed in the first place? Because the next what-if may already be forming, quietly, just beyond the edge of certainty.